Part 1. The Cultural Tapestry of the Ramayana Era, where valor and tradition intertwine. Picture this, a grand royal court in ancient Ayodhya, bustling with activity. The air is thick with the aroma of incense and the sound of sacred chants. Servants carry platters piled high with fruits, grains, and roasted meats for a feast celebrating Prince Ram's upcoming coronation. This scene, described in the Valmiki Ramayana, offers a glimpse into a world vastly different from ours, a world where meat was not just food but a symbol of status, ritual, and survival. To understand whether Lord Ram ate meat, we must first step into the shoes of those who lived in the Treta Yuga, an era steeped in tradition, duty, and cultural complexity. The Kshatriya code: strength, sacrifice, and sustenance. Lord Ram was born into the Kshatriya, warrior, class, a community bound by a unique code of ethics. For Kshatriyas, physical strength and courage were not just virtues, they were necessities. Their lives revolved around protecting their kingdoms, upholding justice, and engaging in warfare when needed. To fuel this demanding lifestyle, their diet often included meat. Hunting was not merely a sport, it was a rite of passage, a way to hone combat skills, and a means to procure food. Imagine a young prince like Ram learning to wield a bow in the forest. A successful hunt would not only prove his skill, but also provide nourishment for his family and community. In ancient texts like the Manusmriti, dietary guidelines were tailored to one's social role. Brahmins, priests, were advised to follow strict vegetarianism to maintain spiritual purity, while Kshatriyas were permitted meat to sustain their vigor. This distinction wasn't about morality, but practicality. Just as modern athletes prioritize protein for muscle growth, warriors of the past relied on meat to build the stamina required for battle. Scriptural clues, feasts, rituals, and symbolism. The Valmiki Ramayana, the oldest version of the epic, drops subtle hints about meat consumption. During preparations for Ram's coronation, the text describes a lavish spread that includes shka, leafy vegetables, MMSA, meat, and madhu, honey. Similarly, when Bharat visits Ram in the forest, he brings offerings of wild game hunted in the wilderness. At first glance, these references seem straightforward. But context matters. Meat in these instances wasn't part of daily meals, but reserved for special occasion, royal feasts, rituals, or offerings to guests. In Vedic traditions, animal sacrifices, yagyas, were common, and the meat was often distributed as prasad, blessed food. For instance, a king performing a yagya to ensure a good harvest might offer a goat to the gods, and its meat would be shared among participants. This wasn't indulgence. It was a sacred act of community and gratitude. However, interpreting these passages isn't black and white. Scholars debate whether the term MMSA always refers to animal meat or could include plant-based substitutes. Ancient Ayurvedic texts mention dishes made from jackfruit or lentils designed to mimic meat, suggesting that alternatives existed even then. The vegetarian evolution, how time reshaped beliefs. Here's a twist. The Ramayana era predates the rise of widespread vegetarianism in India. The shift toward plant-based diets gained momentum centuries later, influenced by Jain and Buddhist philosophies that championed ahimsa, non-violence. Over time, these ideas seeped into Hindu practices, especially among Brahmins and ascetics. By the medieval period, vegetarianism became a marker of piety, and figures like Ram were retroactively portrayed as strict vegetarians to align with these evolving values. But projecting modern ideals onto ancient characters is like judging a blacksmith for using a hammer in the age of robots. The Ramayan's world operated on different norms. Forests were untamed, resources were scarce, and survival often meant adapting to the environment. During his 14-year exile, Ram lived like a hermit, relying on whatever the forest provided: fruits, roots, and possibly hunted meat. Yet, the epic emphasizes his sattvic, pure, nature, raising questions. Did he avoid meat to maintain spiritual clarity? Or did he partake when necessity demanded? The enigma of Ram's plate, why ambiguity fuels debate. The Ramayana focuses on Ram's deeds, not his diet. Valmiki dedicates verses to his compassion, leadership, and sacrifices, but remains silent on what he ate daily. This ambiguity has led to conflicting interpretations. For some, Ram's association with purity and Dharma implies he abstained from meat. For others, his Kshatriya identity and the era's customs suggest he consumed it ritually. Imagine two historians reading the same paragraph. One sees a metaphor for prosperity, meat symbolizing abundance, while another takes it literally. This duality reflects how cultural lenses shape our understanding of history. Setting the stage for myths, the lack of explicit details acts as a blank canvas, inviting myths to flourish. Over centuries, regional retellings of the Ramayana added layers to Ram's persona. In South India, he is often depicted as a vegetarian icon, while folk traditions in Nepal and tribal communities celebrate him as a hunter warrior. These variations aren't contradictions. They're proof of Ram's enduring relevance across diverse cultures. As we peel back the layers of time, one truth emerges. The question of Ram's diet isn't just about food. It's a mirror reflecting our own values, biases, and the stories we choose to tell. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into the Valmiki Ramayana's verses, separating fact from folklore and exploring how a single word can spark centuries of debate. Part 2. Decoding Valmiki's verses, literal truth or symbolic wisdom. The Valmiki Ramayana is like an ancient treasure chest. Each verse holds clues, but not all are easy to decipher. When it comes to the question of whether Lord Ram ate meat, the text offers tantalizing hints, but no definitive answers. To understand this, we must become detectives, examining the words, their meanings, and the cultural context behind them. Let's dive into the verses, explore their interpretations, and unravel the mystery. The coronation feast, a closer look. One of the most cited references to meat in the Ramayana comes during the preparations for Ram's coronation. The text describes a grand feast with an array of delicacies. Shka, MMSA, Madhu, Paye, leafy greens, meat, honey, milk. At face value, this suggests that meat was part of the royal menu. But let's pause and ask, what does MMSA really mean? In Sanskrit, MMSA typically refers to animal flesh, but language is fluid. Could it have been used metaphorically? Some scholars argue that MMSA might symbolize abundance or prosperity rather than literal meat. After all, feasts in ancient texts often used hyperbolic language to convey grandeur. Another angle is the ritualistic significance of meat. In Vedic traditions, royal ceremonies often included animal sacrifices, and the meat was distributed as prasad. If Ram's coronation followed this pattern, the presence of meat wouldn't be unusual. But does this mean Ram himself ate it? Not necessarily. The feast was for the entire court, and Ram's personal choices might have differed. Bharat's offering, a gesture of love or necessity. Another key moment occurs when Bharat visits Ram in the forest. He brings offerings, including wild game hunted in the wilderness. This gesture is often interpreted as a sign of respect and care. But again, the text doesn't explicitly state whether Ram consumed the meat. Here's where cultural context becomes crucial. In ancient India, offering food, especially meat, was a way to honor guests. It symbolized hospitality and generosity. Ram, as the ideal host, might have accepted the offering out of respect for Bharat's devotion, even if he didn't partake in it himself. Alternatively, he might have shared it with his companions or used it in rituals. The forest exile, survival in the wild. During his 14-year exile, Ram lived a life of austerity in the forest. The Ramayana describes how he and Sita relied on fruits, roots, and whatever the forest provided. But forests are unpredictable. There would have been times when food was scarce and hunting might have been necessary for survival. However, the text emphasizes Ram's sattvic nature. A sattvic diet, as per Ayurveda, consists of pure, light, and nourishing foods like fruits, vegetables, and grains. Meat, being tamasic, heavy, and impure, is generally avoided by those seeking spiritual clarity. This raises the question, did Ram prioritize his spiritual ideals over practicality? Or did he adapt to the demands of his environment? The role of symbolism in ancient texts. Ancient texts, like the Ramayana, often use symbolism to convey deeper truths. For instance, the forest, Vana, represents both a physical place and a metaphor for life's challenges. Similarly, food in these texts isn't just sustenance. It carries cultural, spiritual, and moral meanings. When Valmiki mentions meat, he might be using it as a symbol of power, sacrifice, or even temptation. In some interpretations, Ram's refusal to eat meat during his exile signifies his mastery over desire and his commitment to Dharma. In others, his acceptance of meat offerings reflects his ability to balance worldly duties with spiritual ideals. The scholar's dilemma, literal versus allegorical. The debate over Ram's diet boils down to a fundamental question. Should we read the Ramayana literally or allegorically? Those who take a literal approach argue that the text's descriptions of meat reflect the realities of the time. They point to archaeological evidence of animal husbandry and hunting in ancient India to support their case. On the other hand, allegorical readers see the Ramayana as a spiritual guide, where every detail has a deeper meaning. For them, the mention of meat isn't about food, but about the human struggle between base instincts and higher ideals. Ram's choices, whether to eat meat or abstain, become lessons in self-discipline and righteousness. The power of interpretation. The beauty of the Ramayana lies in its adaptability. Over centuries, it has been retold in countless ways, each version reflecting the values and beliefs of its time. In medieval India, as vegetarianism gained prominence, Ram was increasingly portrayed as a vegetarian icon. This wasn't a distortion, but an evolution, a way to make the epic resonate with contemporary audiences. Today, the question of Ram's diet isn't just about history, it's about identity. For many, Ram represents an ideal way of life, and his dietary choices become a reflection of their own values. This is why the debate continues to spark passion and curiosity. Setting the stage for myths. The ambiguity in Valmiki's verses has given rise to myths and legends. Some claim that Ram never touched meat, citing his divine nature. Others argue that he ate meat as part of his royal duties. These stories, while fascinating, often say more about the storytellers than the subject itself. In the next part, we'll explore how these myths took shape, tracing their origins and examining their impact on modern perceptions of Ram. We'll also delve into the role of regional retellings, from Tulsidas Ramcharitmanas to tribal folklore, and how they've shaped our understanding of this timeless epic. Part 3. The Birth of Myths, How Stories Shape Beliefs. Myths are like seeds. They take root in the fertile soil of culture, grow with the nourishment of imagination, and eventually become towering trees that shape our worldview. When it comes to the question of whether Lord Ram ate meat, myths have played a significant role in shaping public perception. These stories didn't emerge overnight. They evolved over centuries, influenced by regional traditions, religious movements, and the human need to connect with the divine. Let's explore how these myths came to be and why they continue to resonate. The role of regional retellings. The Ramayana isn't a single story. It's a mosaic of countless retellings, each adding its own colors and patterns. In North India, Tulsidas Ramcharitmanas is the most revered version. Written in the 16th century, it portrays Ram as a paragon of virtue, emphasizing his sattvic nature and devotion to Dharma. Tulsidas, a devout Brahmin, likely influenced by the Bhakti movement's emphasis on purity, subtly downplays any references to meat, reinforcing the image of Ram as a vegetarian. In contrast, tribal and folk traditions often depict Ram as a hunter-warrior. For instance, the Gond tribe's version of the Ramayana celebrates Ram's skill with the bow and his ability to survive in the forest. These narratives, rooted in the realities of tribal life, present a more pragmatic Ram, one who hunts for food and protects his loved ones. These regional variations aren't contradictions, they're reflections of the diverse cultures that embraced the Ramayana. Each community saw Ram through its own lens, adapting the story to fit its values and experiences. The influence of religious movements. The rise of Jainism and Buddhism in ancient India brought ahimsa, non-violence, to the forefront of spiritual discourse. Over time, these ideas seeped into Hinduism, particularly among ascetics and Brahmins. By the medieval period, vegetarianism became a marker of piety, and figures like Ram were retroactively portrayed as strict vegetarians to align with these evolving values. The Bhakti movement, which swept across India between the 12th and 17th centuries, further reinforced this image. Bhakti saints like Tulsidas and Surdas emphasized devotion and purity, often equating meat eating with impurity. Their writings, which reached a wide audience, played a crucial role in shaping the modern perception of Ram as a vegetarian. The power of symbolism in myth-making. Myths often use symbolism to convey deeper truths. In the case of Ram, his dietary choices became a metaphor for his moral and spiritual ideals. For instance, his refusal to eat meat during his exile is sometimes interpreted as a sign of his mastery over desire and his commitment to Dharma. On the other hand, his acceptance of meat offerings is seen as a reflection of his ability to balance worldly duties with spiritual principles. These symbolic interpretations aren't just about food, they're about the human struggle to navigate the complexities of life. By portraying Ram as a vegetarian, storytellers highlighted his purity and self-control. By depicting him as a hunter, they emphasized his practicality and resilience. Both narratives, though seemingly contradictory, reveal different facets of his character. The role of modern interpretations. In contemporary times, the debate over Ram's diet has taken on new dimensions. For some, it's a matter of historical accuracy, a quest to uncover the truth about Ram's life. For others, it's a reflection of personal beliefs and values. Vegetarians often cite Ram's supposed vegetarianism as proof of its spiritual superiority, while non-vegetarians argue that his Kshatriya background and the cultural context of his time justify meat consumption. This debate isn't just about Ram, it's about identity. In a country as diverse as India, food is deeply tied to culture, religion, and tradition. By projecting their own dietary choices onto Ram, people find validation for their way of life. The danger of oversimplification. While myths can be enlightening, they can also be reductive. By focusing solely on whether Ram ate meat, we risk oversimplifying his legacy. Ram's greatness lies not in his diet, but in his actions, his unwavering commitment to Dharma, his compassion for all beings, and his ability to lead with humility and wisdom. Moreover, the obsession with Ram's dietary habits reflects a broader trend of reducing complex historical figures to binary categories. Was Ram a vegetarian or a meat-eater, a warrior or a saint? The truth, as always, lies somewhere in between. The enduring appeal of myths. Despite their limitations, myths continue to captivate us because they speak to our deepest desires and fears. They offer comfort in times of uncertainty, guidance in moments of doubt, and a sense of connection to something greater than ourselves. The myths surrounding Ram's diet, whether true or not, remind us of his humanity and his ability to inspire across generations. In the next part, we'll explore how these myths have influenced modern culture, from festivals and rituals to art and literature. We'll also examine the role of archaeology and historical research in separating fact from fiction, shedding light on the life and times of Lord Ram. Part 4. Myths in Modern Times, from Festivals to Films. Myths are not confined to ancient texts. They live and breathe in our daily lives. From the way we celebrate festivals to the stories we tell through art and cinema, the myths surrounding Lord Ram's diet have permeated modern culture in subtle yet profound ways. This part explores how these myths have shaped contemporary practices, beliefs, and even entertainment, and how they continue to influence our understanding of Ram's legacy. Festivals and rituals, a reflection of beliefs. Take Diwali, for instance. The Festival of Lights, celebrated across India and beyond, marks the return of Ram, Sita, and Lakshman to Ayodhya after their 14-year exile. Homes are cleaned, lamps are lit, and feasts are prepared. But what's on the menu? In many households, especially in North India, the feast is strictly vegetarian. Sweets like laddus and kheer take center stage, while meat is conspicuously absent. This tradition is rooted in the belief that Ram followed a sattvic diet, and celebrating his return with vegetarian food is a way to honor his purity. However, in other regions, particularly in the East and Northeast, meat dishes are an integral part of Diwali celebrations. These differences highlight how myths adapt to local customs, creating a rich tapestry of traditions. Art and literature, reimagining Ram's world. Artists and writers have long been inspired by the Ramayana, using their creativity to interpret its themes and characters. In modern literature, Ram is often depicted as a vegetarian, embodying the ideals of nonviolence and compassion. For example, in many children's books and comics, Ram is shown eating fruits and nuts during his exile, reinforcing the image of a gentle, saintly figure. On the other hand, folk art forms like Patachitra from Odisha and Warli paintings from Maharashtra often depict Ram as a hunter-warrior, reflecting the practical realities of his life in the forest. These artistic representations, though diverse, contribute to the ongoing dialogue about Ram's identity and values. Cinema and television, bringing myths to life. The silver screen has played a pivotal role in shaping modern perceptions of Ram. Ramanand Sagar's iconic TV series Ramayana, which aired in the late 1980s, portrayed Ram as a divine figure with an aura of purity. His diet, though not explicitly discussed, was implied to be vegetarian, aligning with the show's emphasis on his saintly qualities. In contrast, more recent adaptations, such as the animated film Sita Sings the Blues, take a more nuanced approach. While not directly addressing Ram's diet, these works explore the complexities of his character, inviting viewers to question traditional narratives and form their own interpretations. The role of archaeology and historical research. While myths and traditions offer valuable insights, they're not always grounded in historical fact. In recent years, archaeologists and historians have sought to uncover the real Ram, not the mythical figure, but the historical person who may have lived thousands of years ago. Excavations in Ayodhya and other sites mentioned in the Ramayana have yielded fascinating discoveries, from ancient pottery to remnants of settlements. However, these findings have done little to resolve the debate over Ram's diet. The absence of direct evidence means that we must rely on indirect clues, such as the dietary habits of the Kshatriya class during the Treta Yuga. While this research adds depth to our understanding, it also underscores the limitations of trying to separate fact from fiction in a story as ancient and layered as the Ramayana. The globalization of Ram's story. In today's interconnected world, the Ramayana has transcended geographical and cultural boundaries. From Indonesia to the Caribbean, Ram's story has been adapted to suit local contexts, often blending Hindu traditions with indigenous beliefs. In Bali, for example, the Ramayana is performed as a dance drama, with Ram depicted as a noble and virtuous king. While his diet is not a focal point, the emphasis on his purity aligns with the vegetarian narrative. This globalization of Ram's story has also sparked debates about cultural appropriation and authenticity. As the Ramayana reaches new audiences, It raises questions about whose version of the story is being told and whose voices are being heard. The power of myths in shaping identity. Ultimately, the myths surrounding Ram's diet are not just about food, they're about identity. For many, Ram represents an ideal way of life, and his dietary choices become a reflection of their own values. Vegetarians see him as a symbol of nonviolence and compassion, while non-vegetarians view him as a practical and adaptable leader. These myths also serve as a reminder of the enduring power of storytelling. Whether through festivals, art, or cinema, the stories we tell about Ram shape our understanding of who he was and what he stood for. They inspire us to strive for greatness, to uphold Dharma, and to navigate the complexities of life with grace and wisdom. Looking ahead, the future of Ram's legacy. As we move forward, the myths surrounding Ram's diet will continue to evolve, reflecting the changing values and beliefs of society. New generations will reinterpret his story, adding their own layers of meaning and relevance. What remains constant, however, is the timeless appeal of Ram's character, a beacon of hope, courage, and righteousness in an ever-changing world. In the final part, we'll reflect on the lessons we can learn from this debate, not just about Ram, but about ourselves. We'll explore how the myths we create and embrace shape our understanding of history, culture, and spirituality, and how they inspire us to live better lives. Part 5. Lessons from the debate Beyond Diet and Dharma. The question of whether Lord Ram ate meat is more than a historical or theological debate. It's a mirror that reflects our values, biases, and the stories we choose to tell about ourselves. As we conclude this exploration, let's step back and consider the broader lessons we can learn from this discussion. Lessons that go beyond diet and dharma, touching on the very essence of what it means to be human. The fluidity of truth. One of the most striking takeaways from this debate is the fluidity of truth. The Ramayana, like all ancient texts, is open to interpretation. What one person sees as a literal account, another views as symbolic wisdom. This duality isn't a flaw, it's a feature. It allows the story to remain relevant across time and space, adapting to the needs and values of each generation. In our own lives, this teaches us to approach truth with humility. Whether we're discussing history, religion, or even personal beliefs, it's important to recognize that our understanding is shaped by our perspective. By embracing this complexity, we can engage in more meaningful and respectful conversations. The power of stories. Stories are the lifeblood of culture. They shape our identity, guide our actions, and connect us to something greater than ourselves. The myths surrounding Ram's diet remind us of the power of storytelling, not just to entertain, but to inspire, educate, and unite. In a world often divided by differences, stories like the Ramayana offer a common ground. They remind us of shared values, compassion, courage, and the pursuit of righteousness that transcend boundaries of time, place, and belief. By cherishing these stories, we keep alive the wisdom of the past while creating a foundation for the future. The danger of reductionism. The debate over Ram's diet also highlights the danger of reducing complex figures to simplistic categories. Was Ram a vegetarian or a meat-eater, a warrior or a saint? The truth is, he was both and neither. He was a multifaceted individual capable of great strength and profound compassion, of upholding dharma while navigating the complexities of life. This lesson is particularly relevant in today's polarized world, where we often reduce people and ideas to binary labels. By embracing nuance and complexity, we can move beyond stereotypes and see the full humanity in others and in ourselves. The role of context. Understanding Ram's dietary choices requires an appreciation of context, cultural, historical, and spiritual. The Ramayana was written in a specific time and place, shaped by the values and realities of that era. To judge it by modern standards is to miss its richness and depth. This principle applies to all aspects of life. Whether we are interpreting ancient texts, analyzing historical events, or navigating personal relationships, context matters. By seeking to understand the why behind actions and beliefs, we can foster empathy and build bridges of understanding. The universality of Ram's legacy. At its core, the debate over Ram's diet is about more than food. It's about what Ram represents. For millions, he is the embodiment of Dharma, the ideal king, the devoted husband, the loving brother, and the compassionate friend. His story transcends dietary choices, offering timeless lessons on leadership, sacrifice, and the pursuit of righteousness. These lessons are universal. They speak to anyone striving to live a life of purpose and integrity, regardless of their background or beliefs. In Ram, we find a model of how to navigate life's challenges with grace, humility, and unwavering commitment to what is right. A call to reflection. As we reflect on this debate, let's ask ourselves, what does Ram mean to us? Is he a historical figure, a divine being, or a symbol of our highest ideals? How do the stories we tell about him shape our understanding of ourselves and the world around us? These questions invite us to look inward, to examine our own values and beliefs. They challenge us to move beyond superficial debates and engage with the deeper truths that the Ramayana and life itself has to offer. Conclusion. Beyond the plate. The question of whether Lord Ram ate meat may never be fully answered, and perhaps it doesn't need to be. What matters is not what was on his plate, but what was in his heart, his unwavering commitment to Dharma, his compassion for all beings, and his ability to inspire generations across millennia. As we close this exploration, let's carry forward the lessons of the Ramayana, not as rigid doctrines, but as guiding lights. Let's strive to live with the same integrity, courage, and compassion that Ram exemplified, recognizing that the true measure of greatness lies not in what we eat, but in how we live. And so, the story of Ram continues, not just in ancient texts or modern debates, but in the lives of those who seek to walk the path of Dharma one step at a time.